What's up, y'all? This is Ab M. Banu, aka Rhythm Phoenix, coming to you again from the book The Shamanic Wisdom in the Pyramid Text, The Mystical Traditions of Ancient Egypt by Jeremy Naydler. This is chapter 7, and this is dealing with the section in the book referring to the sarcophagus chamber texts. This is where he begins breaking down the parts of the texts, the pyramid texts, within the sarcophagus chambers, which represents the source of the texts. Now, I'll try to read as much as I can, but I want to read only what I have highlighted in parentheses, or maybe a little extra. So starting on page 176, a little quote here says that we have the earliest known form of a complete liturgy that was used again on the north walls of the 6th dynasty pyramids and in later tombs. We have already seen that although a text may be placed in a tomb, this fact alone does not necessarily mean that its purpose was exclusively funerary. We have also seen that the presentation of offerings to the king was an important ritual component both in coronation ceremonies, such as we find described in the Ramesseum dramatic papyrus, and in ceremonies concerned with the renewal of the kingship, such as the Set festival. In both cases, the king underwent certain rituals that brought him into proximity with the realm of the deceased or the dead while he was himself alive. Okay. And then on the next page, he breaks down the sections of the registers where the utterances are. As in, the top register has part 1, part 2, part 3. The middle has 4 and 5. The bottom register has the part 5, which is the conclusion of the offering of the feasts. Okay. Page 188. Each part of the offering liturgy was accompanied by a certain ritual acts whose purpose it was to help the soul journey into the spirit world, while at the same time promoting a beneficial relationship between the soul as it is spiritualized in the realm of the living. What is preserved on the walls are the words spoken to accompany the performance of the rites, beginning at the west end of the wall and working eastward. Why would they do that? That's because that the sun travels from the night, right? Because the book is called Coming Forth by Day, as far as the compository of the ancient text, all the way down into different other texts that were found, with the earliest being the pyramid text of Unas. The sun travels from west to east when it is in the Duat realm, or the realm of Aminta, or the hidden land, so or the underworld. So that's why the purification ceremony is starting in the west. And Osiris was Lord of the Perfect West. He was the perfect Westerner. And the Valley of the Kings was supposed to be on the west side of the Nile. Part 1, Purification, utterances 23, 25, 32, and 34 through 36. Real quick, there's a figure here, figure 7-2, a Sim priest, or Shem. Because see, in the Sumerian text, the late Zechariah Sitchin translated the word Shems for the English word rockets, which I believe is illusionary and incorrect in dealing, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that everything came from the planet known as Nibiru. But I'm not on that right now. We'll get into that later. But this Shem priest performs the incense rite. So in utterance 25, this is to enable Unas to go forth with his Ka, which is the divine double. Everyone has one. New kingdom relief. This is a new kingdom relief from the temple of Seti I in Abydos. Okay, the ceremonies begin with a series of 6 purification rituals, 4 using water. And that is in utterances 23, 32, 34, and 35. And 2 employing fire through the burning of incense, utterances 25 and 36. The most important of these are utterances 25 incense, and 32, libation, both of which occur later on as markers of crucial stages of transition as the ceremonies proceed. Utterance 25 is a censing ritual. It took place immediately after a preliminary cleansing ritual, Utterance 23, and involving water being sprinkled, probably over the king's head. And as we know when we study the tablets of the Sumerian text, Enki and or Marduk are, they have barriers that look like water, which could signify energy, and they have water poured in sprinkles or in little sprouts on top or over their head. Okay, and that goes into a whole nother level. So the censing described in Utterance 25 that followed this purification by water was meant magically to bring about a union of the king with the royal Ka, which was the bearer of the king's divinity. Thus, through the censing rite, the king became inwardly divinized. The Ka, as in the royal Ka, is also related to your ancestral realm and any aspect of life that you had lived before, being embedded into the Ka, which is a divine double created when you are. But the essence of the Ka is eternal. Thus, through the censing rite, the king became inwardly divinized. Thereby, he could go forth with his Ka, just as do the gods, with freedom to move in any direction he wanted. In the text, his Ka travels accompanied by the gods of the four cardinal directions: Horus, north; Seth, south; Thoth, west; and Dunanui, east. Okay, we shall return to this later here. Utterance 32 follows immediately. It is a libation text in which natron-infused water is poured over the king's feet so that his heart becomes cool. I'm reminded by Mary Magdalene, or Mary rubbing the feet and massaging the feet of Jesus, washing his feet. Okay, and also the ancient goddess, or if we can call her that, the ancient primordial entity or deity Tiamat represented the salt water, and Apsu represented the fresh water. So think about that, because they're using natron-infused water, and this is poured over the king's feet so that his heart becomes cool. For the Egyptians, this cool water had a heavenly origin. Its source was the Nun, mythologically the birthplace of Ra. In this utterance, it is also described as having issued from Osiris. So it has both the cosmic creative properties of the Nun and the renewing properties of Osiris, god of regeneration. As such, the libation has a baptismal significance. And above that I put Paul/Anpu, effecting the birth of Osiris, Unas, as a newborn Horus. The water is said literally to be poured under the sandals of the king, and I put the symbol of the Ankh there, a ritual that formed a significant part of the said festival ceremonies. As with the censing of the king, the pouring of the libation is not necessarily a funerary ritual. In figure 7.3, the jar of water that is poured under the sandals of King Niuserre is held by a Smer priest, S-M-E-R, behind whom stands a Khedi head priest, both of whom usually preside over funerary rites. Here, however, the king is alive, and the event is his said festival. I mean, I guess I would have known this, but I never actually realized that there were different levels of priesthood. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so right here in this section of figure 7.3, it's showing a libation is poured under the sandals of King Niuserre, or Niuserre, as part of the said festival ceremonies, and it's clearly visible that you can clearly see it. The liturgy on the north wall of the sarcophagus chamber of the pyramid of Unas describes a similar purification rite. Okay. I'm also reminded of when he's poured, the water is poured under the sandals. I'm reminded of the Jesus Christos walking on water. Page 190, it says the final rite once again concentrates on the king's Ka, freeing it to travel like a god in any direction it pleases. And this Ka is the target for elite manipulation while you are down here on this earth, to keep you disconnected from your higher reality and higher realities and multidimensional realms where you exist in simultaneously, because your soul is non-local and it is really a residence of spirit and the spirit world. Okay. The next section deals with the opening of the mouth ceremony. It goes from utterances 37 through 42. Let me see. Okay. There are 6 texts for the rite of opening of the mouth, utterances 37 through 42, which together make up the second part of the liturgy. The mouth is split open using an instrument called a peseshkef, illustrated in 7:4. Okay, and shows you here that the opening of the mouth with the peseshkef instrument from the tomb of Pet Amin Apet, 26th dynasty. Okay, the word peseshkef is composed of 2 parts. Pesesh implies division and refers to either the shape or the function of the instrument, possibly both, while kef refers to the material out of which it was made, flint. Hence, its name means the divided or dividing instrument, peresh, of flint, kef. Now think about the flint that are very ancient. They found them in Nubia and Egypt, all over. But there is a book called The Spear of Destiny, where on the front page they apply what looks like a flint on top of the arrow or the spear. And this spear I have connected with the spinal column and the telluric deities that arise from the lower regions of the spinal column of the south and rise up into the north, out of Set into Heru. Now, Seth's involvement, that's strange. Let me see. Horus and Seth. Seth's involvement may well be in his role of demonic initiator, who severs one from one's past identity. This is the cutting Osiris into 14 pieces. In the illustration, it is held by a Shem priest wearing the ritual leopard skin garment. Okay. The opening of the mouth rite was essentially involved with opening a channel between the spirit world and the physical world. This is why it was used magically to animate statues of the gods, or equally the Ka statues of human beings. When performed on the dead, the opening of the mouth rite was supposed not just to enable them to partake in the offerings given to them in the physical world, it also had the effect of awakening them to the reality of the spirit world. Thus, in the pyramid of pt.6, it is stated that through the rite, the king goes and himself speaks with the great Enyad of the gods. This is the 9, and these represents the higher aspects of the self that are born with the self in the material world. Okay, it is therefore not hard to see how the rite could, under certain special circumstances, have been used not only on the dead but also on the living. Such special circumstances may well have included near-death initiatory rituals, near-death experiences, like the said festival secret rites, which significantly were attended by both a Sim priest and a priest called the opener of the mouth. In the Unas liturgy, the 2 utterances that conclude the opening of the mouth rite, 41 through 42, indicate that the nourishment to be ingested by the reborn king is divine in origin. Thinking about the manna that comes from heaven, the soma, it is that by him it says melanin. It is milk from the nipples of Isis or Heru, which combined together would be Het Heru, because Het Heru is another form of Isis, and Isis is the mother of Heru, and Het Heru's image was also utilized to represent the feeder of Heru Pakar, the Heru the child. The circling of kings by goddesses is a common theme in Old Kingdom, as well as much later reliefs depicting kingship ceremonies. Thus, for example, at the temple of Seti I at Abydos, there are reliefs depicting various stages of the coronation and investiture of the king, in which he is first baptized, by having a libation poured over him, and is then suckled by the goddess Het Heru. And then in figure 7, I thought I'd show you the image of that. Okay, something similar is depicted at Luxor Temple, where the ceremony of rejuvenating the royal ka was held annually. As suckling scenes were depicted alongside said festival reliefs in pt.6 Pyramid Temple, it is very likely that this also formed part of the said festival rites. In each case, the divine suckling of the king symbolizes the mythological reality of his spiritual rebirth. One of the earliest representations of the Egyptian king being suckled is, significantly, a fragment from a relief carving found at the temple adjoining the pyramid of Unas, which portrays him drinking from the nipple of a goddess, possibly Ayat. See in figure 728. Okay. Let me see. Whether the king was literally suckled is a question that must remain open. In figure 7.6, from the much later tomb of Apet, which reproduced the Unas offering liturgy, the offering of milk is given in vases. Okay, I want to stop there. The next part is dealing with part 3, preliminary presentation of the offerings. And this shit is very important, y'all. Okay, because this is dealing with 7 offerings of cake, meat, beer, and wine. Okay, and the number 7 is very key. Okay. And polarized, we're dealing with 14 different adult food offerings, which the newborn king can now graduate to. This has been Phoenix. Ashe.